Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for your patience. Before we get too dug in here, I just want to say to everybody that this talk has evolved. It's been evolving, and it's a little different now than it was when I wrote the abstract. So the abstract says we're going to talk about, super fun ways to get around controls. But when I started writing this, and I started writing down my experiences about, what I was seeing in the field, what I was seeing when I was doing some physical pen testing, I wasn't really having to do much that was super cool, right? So this kind of moved on to, from me trying to share with you how I've been bypassed biometric locks or something along those lines to, that's not really realistic, because in most practical pen tests, it's just walking right in the door. It's walking right in the front door. It's social engineering somebody at reception or a simple phone call that helps to get your beachhead. So because of this evolution, and it's not so much, the real breaches are happening because of, really intricate physical attacks, I want to talk more today and come to you as peers, as friends, and ask for help. So first of all, how many pen testers do we have in here? Fantastic. The minority, and that's what I'm looking for. So I don't want to talk to you again. I'm not trying to show you guys how to do cool things in your jobs. So if that's the content you came for based around the abstract, I just want to be clear about that before we go too deep into the whole thing here. Yeah. Sorry, I was a little disorganized with the late start, so please forgive while I settle in. Okay. So, most of you know me. Some of you don't. My name's Phil Grimes. I'm a security consultant. I have been for way too long. I've been on the hacking scene a lot longer. Since about the mid-90s, used to terrorize AOL back in the day and all kinds of fun stuff. I've been a hacker most of my life. My mom will tell you, that I like to get around the system whenever I can. I find creative ways to do it. I'm also an adventurer. I like to wander. I can't sit still very long. I'm pretty much a nomad. I like to go where I want, do what I want, see what I want, and experience as much as I can in life. I have one of these things, not a hoodie, but a computer. I spend a lot of time with my machine, as probably most of us do here. It's become my best friend. My wife has called it my mistress, has even given my machine a name, so there's that. I also have one of these things. Some call them a death machine. I call it freedom on wheels. I do a lot of this kind of stuff. I ride all over the country. I ride year-round. And I love, like I said, to explore and see the world. It's a huge, huge world. It's an awesome country that we've got here. And I like to tear things up. All of these things kind of fold into, the first point of, I'm not talking necessarily from the standpoint of the average security consultant that you see, somebody who, follows XYZ methodology, but I'm talking to you from somebody who has built a career around being a composite attacker. Somebody who, if you want a true test of your security posture, if you want to see what your organization can handle, if you want to know what your threshold is for risk, you call my team. My friends know me as the Grape. My mom calls me a bull in a china shop. My boss barely ever calls me at all, which is kind of a good thing. So throughout this career that I've been trying to build for myself, it seems almost nonstop. We constantly bash on the users. We tell the users don't care, users are stupid, users don't know what they're doing. And I'm coming today because I want to hopefully change that mentality. I want to try to talk to you about a different way, not necessarily to leave the users behind and to say, screw them, we're just going to wrap controls around what matters and move on, but to talk to you about the fact that your users are one of the biggest assets in the organization. The fact that the users are the ones who are the boots on the ground. They're usually the ones that interface with the assets that you're securing the most often, most regularly, most inappropriately. And that's what I want to come today, is to appeal to each of you to leave here today after hearing these stories, not to keep up this bashing of the user's culture, but more so to hopefully say, holy crap, it really shouldn't be like this. Some of the stuff that we're going to talk about here in this hour, it's mind-boggling how trivial it can be to infiltrate places that each of us really count on to be secure. And because of that, I thought, rather than going through the complex stuff, let's talk about the simple stuff. Let's get back to the basics. Let's rebuild the fundamentals, and hopefully, we can make some change throughout the respective organizations. So with that, it's going to be story time. So sit back, settle in. Fortunately, none of you all have hangovers. Well, Irish Jack left, so nobody has hangovers that we have to worry about. So stay with me. And again, if you haven't seen me speak before, I'm not here to give you a lecture, especially not at 10 o'clock in the morning. If you want to talk, if you want to give some feedback, if you want to engage, please feel free. Raise your hand. I'm happy to take questions or whatever. So once upon a time, I was sitting in my office. By office, I mean my mobile command center, which is my F-150, while the wife was driving down the road, and I was sitting in the back with everything set up, working away. And I get this client call that says, I want the full treatment. We did an engagement a year before with this client. We tore them up pretty bad, and they said they had spent, I think it was like $750,000 revamping their security policy. Policy, process, practices, controls, all of it. So they said, we're ready for you. Come get me. I want to see what you can do. We want all of it. This is not, again, we're the first target. I have to kind of be a little vague here, so please forgive that. But this is not an industry. We're not talking about a drugstore that you can walk in and pocket a water pistol. We're talking more about highly regulated, highly controlled places where you walk in and you see the facade of security. You see the badges. You see the passwords. You're supposed to see locked screens and keyboards when people walk away from their machines. This is some place that you would really truly expect to see security being done right. They had a lot of good data. They were a target in the real world. We actually came to find out during the course of the penetration test. Their true downfall was the fact that it was a great place to work, one of those top 50, top 100 kind of places, which is awesome, because those places build cool culture, right? We all want to wear jeans to work. We all want to not have to work from the cubicle on Friday. So by building this culture, they also build in things like, oh, sure, come on in. I'll hold the door for you. This cultural flaw becomes a real issue. Now, something else I want you to keep in mind while we go through the rest of this story is the fact that I was wrong here, because it's a little over $100,000 just in the security controls. They put $100,000 just in physical controls, saying, "Na na na boo boo." We want you to do everything. Break in. Give us your best shot. Well, I mean, who am I to disappoint, right? So we rolled out essentially what was a basic scope of work for what I like to call the Michael Weston experience. There was no scope, which is really one of only a handful of times that I've gotten to do this throughout my career. And it's nice because, the pen testers in the room or around the con you'll probably hear them gripe about scope being the biggest issue, right? Everybody wants to hear that their baby's the prettiest. We're going to bind you by scope so that you aren't able to look over here where the dirty laundry really lies. We sweep it under the rug, and we're having you look at the hardwood floors, right? So this is the kind of thing that normally doesn't happen. So I went all out, right? I loaded up lock picks, RFID tools. I had outfits for every different possible scenario you could imagine. I kid you not, a stack of fake IDs that was about 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick. We were ready to go. Soon, we were ready to unleash the dogs of war. Monday morning, I pull up. I'm sitting in the parking lot. I get there about an hour before I knew people to start rolling in. And sitting from an adjacent parking lot, Their parking lot was empty. As I started seeing people roll in, that was where I saw the first flaw of, oh, here, come on in. Happy Monday. Good to see you. How was your weekend? There's a little lull, though, from the first wave of people. And I noticed a little bit later on that the employees looked just like the average person. No, they wore casual clothes, no IDs. There was no badge. And so I was watching a little more as the next wave came through, and they had their answer to a security control for their front door was a numeric PIN pad, which is great. Right? That's better, in my opinion, better than like low-frequency RFID that I can clone at a Starbucks and steal your card and just walk right in. Now I have to either brute force or some other way get your PIN number. But watching more, I started to see that every once in a while in the crowd, there would be somebody that was wearing, much like these that we wear for the con today, they had red lanyards with a badge. So I did a pass around the building. I was kind of, talking with some of the people that were making their way inside, just pretending to be some Joe on the street. And I found that the visitors were the ones that were given the lanyards and the badges. But the employees had nothing. So I go back to my car, I sit, I watch for a little longer. And about 3/4 of the way through that first hour, here we are, not quite 9 o'clock, and I'm like, all right, let's go. We're going in. We're going to do this. And here I was all ready to, like I said, I was ready to be the Xerox guy. I had AT&T gear. I was ready to do whatever we needed to get in the door, but knowing how badly we ripped them up last time, and because of the challenge that they gave me at the beginning of this whole thing, I thought, screw this. We're just going to walk right in the front door and see what happens. So I get out of my car, jeans and a t-shirt, much like what you see here. Wait and time as there are some employees crossing the parking lot, and I just followed them right in. And they held the door. Like, here you go, come on in. So at this point, I'm in the foyer of the building. I see the receptionist. She makes eye contact with me. So I just go to a text message and keep right on walking. Never questions me, never says a thing. Now these are, I come to find out, are two of the biggest consumers of the budget. That $100,000 in physical controls was the receptionist and the keypad. So we've bypassed the majority of what they've done to stop us at this point, right? It took me 7 minutes, not even 7 minutes, from the minute I left my car to the minute I had made it beyond their first two security controls. Was that a question back there? I'm sorry. Were you raising your hand? No? Okay. Unauthorized access. I made it. It was actually 9 o'clock. But wandering around the building, we found the facility. There was nothing else. By the time we made it past that receptionist and the security controls, the only other things that they had were at each floor they had ingress badge, or the keypad ingress. And if you time it right, nobody's going to stop you. All you got to do is follow somebody else in, and the best place to work, right? Oh, sure, here, come on in. They don't want to slam the door in your face. So I walk the building. I'm wandering around. I found on this four-story building that first floor was kind of like they're just reception and general work area. They had a call center there. Second floor was IT. Third floor was another part of the call center. And then the fourth floor was their executive floor. This is where CEO, CFO, all of the bosses were. My wanderings, I joined an employee potluck. I was a little hungry. They didn't question me. I sat down. I ate with them. I was out on the cusp a little bit. I didn't want to get right in the mix, but not a word, not a question, not a, hey, who are you? Oh, hey, nice to meet you. Welcome to the team. Nothing like that, but they just let me right in the conversation like I belong there. What really got me, though, was about it was a little bit before 4 o'clock that afternoon, while I was exploring the upper level, that C-level floor, I found an empty corner office. And I kind of just ducked in this office. There were some construction supplies in there, and I just sat in this dark, empty office for a few minutes and just kind of listened to what was going on the floor. Everything. Business. I heard all kinds of conversation, lots of information leakage, things that an outsider definitely shouldn't have heard, which isn't typical for those of you who have any interface with executives. That's pretty common. They love to talk. They love to hear their own voice. But we wanted to see how long we could keep this. So we made entry. Now I found this office, so I made it my own. I set my laptop up. I plugged into the network. We started the internal assessment at this point because I could. Remember again, there is no scope. They didn't care what I did. The only thing I wasn't allowed to do was cause physical damage to people or property or break any laws. That was it. So while I'm sitting inside, getting everything plugged up, I start scanning away at their network. Not a word. Nobody sees this on the wire. So we start to see now where the physical and the digital is crossing the lines, really driving this home, especially once they found out how much data we were able to steal from the digital environment. After I got all settled, I picked up the phone and I thought, all right, it's probably time to announce my presence. I've been here a good majority of the day. I went and had lunch. I came back after lunch and was able to walk right up and into my office. No problems, never questioned, not accosted at all. So I pick up my cell phone and I start to dial my contact's number and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm going to call from this office line. So I dial his extension. Picks up, hello? Hello? The call is coming from inside the house. He said, who is this? So then I just wanted to have a little fun with it, wake him up, told him it was me. I've been here, I've been inside. I've got myself a little beachhead set up, so I just wanted to let you know that I'm here. He said, where are you? I said, I'm 4th floor. Really? What room? Corner office, west side. Click. It wasn't a minute later, and he was standing in the doorway with this kind of, I don't know if it was like dumbfounded shame on his face, but it was fantastic. It was one of the best things that I'd gotten to see in quite a while. So we talked, we had this little debrief, and most of the time we live and die by the concept of pause and contact. If you're actually able to do something really damaging, at least have the courtesy to have the conversation, let them know, and to have the choice whether or not they prefer lube. So we had this conversation, and he said, no, we asked for it, so we want it. Keep going. I want to see how long you can keep your office. I want to see if you're accosted or questioned. I want to know who speaks to you. Great. So this is really a thing, right? Like I really get to, this is an engagement at this point. Now I'm like, all right, these people are serious. This isn't an, okay, we're good. We'll call it quits and wave the flag. They're like, all right, let's keep going. So we did. The next morning, I basically followed the same model. I got there a little bit beforehand. There was a Starbucks just across and catty corner down the street, still within visibility. So I go and get myself some coffee and start watching people roll in. Now, by this time, I realized that there were 2 shifts through the business office. There was another entrance for the 24-hour call center, which I didn't really care about. But they had 2 shifts through the business office, which meant that I could watch the first wave come in, and then I could make my entry with the second wave, which is exactly what I did. The very same thing. Only this time, I bought some of the muffins from Starbucks, get myself a nice little box, and I'm walking along holding my cell phone up to my ear. Nobody thinks twice about this. Come on in. Here you go. Welcome. The receptionist this time doesn't even look twice at me. She doesn't even think about it. So I don't exactly fit into most places, right? I kind of stand out. I've got a bit of a memorable face. And for these people to, accept something that looks fairly different from the average employee at this point, I was a little disheartened, especially considering, remember, process, policy, all of this stuff was supposed to be revamped from the last time that we broke them. So anyway, I get back into my office and I'm allowed to go. At this point, physical and digital lines don't exist. He said, get whatever you can. All right? So I went in with a couple of USBs loaded with some malware. I've got my machine up in my office scanning, and I start wandering around the floor, talking to people while they're working. looking at machines. Oh, I'm with IT. I'm just, checking the asset tags on your boxes. Nobody said a thing. USB, USB, USB. Oh, and by the way, will you do me a favor and send an email to my boss and just let him know that I checked your machine? Oh, sure. So not only now do I have shells up in my office, thanks to the USBs they're letting me drop, but we also have, I have employees taking action as themselves for me. Now granted, it's only email, but that was the flag. I promise you, I could have gotten them to do anything. I did have one open the command prompt just so we could do the IP config. I just wanted to see if she'd do it, right? The problem is the culture. Right? That's the theme of this whole thing. Are we starting to see that materialize? The culture that we've propagated when we're doing this, oh, it's a great place to work, starts to kill us when it comes to a matter of security. Okay, so by Wednesday, there was nothing stopping me. I could come and go as I pleased. Nobody said a thing. All I had to do was time myself so that I could tailgate somebody getting in. As long as I could tailgate to get in that first door or the ingress on any of the upper floors, that's all it took. Now, one thing I forgot to mention about the ingress is that they were also right by a bathroom. So on Tuesday, one of the things that I did discover was I didn't really even have to stalk somebody to follow them in. I just waited in the bathroom behind the door, which is really creepy when another dude comes in, I gotta say. But just stand in behind the door a little bit and you're able to, I can hear when it opens. So I got a paper towel in my hand. I hear somebody come out. I walk out like I'm just leaving the bathroom, tailgate myself right in as the door starts to swing closed, and poof. We've bypassed 100K plus in control. But by Wednesday, there was no issue. Nobody said a thing. Nobody looked at me sideways. I could come and go as I pleased. I went and had lunch with one of the employees, for God's sake. Hey, you want to go grab a bite? Sure. We went over. There was a sandwich shop right by the Starbucks. We broke bread. We got all kinds of information from him, including his PIN number. So we talk a lot in the industry about password reuse, and that becomes death in this instance. Password reuse, because of this one failure, gave me access to their data center, because everybody who has one of these PIN numbers is entered into this immature numeric PIN system, and it works everywhere. So if you're Joe Average, and you decide you want to go test your code on that fourth floor where the executives are, there's nothing to stop you. The only thing that's stopping them is the culture of this is where you go to work. This is your function. When somebody who doesn't want to live by those rules comes into the environment, you have no security. I don't see those boundaries. I don't even think about, oh, well, that's where CEO's supposed to go. I don't belong there because I don't wear a tie. That's not the way things work, especially when you're talking in today's threatscape, where everyone's a target. All of your data is up for grabs. Everybody wants it. You might not think that they do, but people want it. So I had access to the data center with some more of my USBs in my pocket. Plugged it in, plugged it in, plugged it in. Shells popping galore upstairs. This is a wonderful thing. At this point, we have total control, digitally and physically, of a fairly sizable organization that we're talking a couple of $1 billion a year in profit. I have intellectual property. I have employee data. I know where every one of your employees lives. I now have control of your numeric door controller, so I can give myself a PIN if I don't want to impersonate this guy that I conned out of his number anymore. Continued to touch more machines, continued to have the employees do what they, take action for me. I sent a half a dozen emails just to kind of rub a little salt in the wound to prove that I could get your employees to do things for me without any question. So a little bit after lunch on this Wednesday afternoon, we're 3 days well into this assessment. We have, Friday is going to be the debrief in the end. We close everything up. But Wednesday is the end of the assessment. And by this time, the other half of my team got on site. They were doing the internal side of this assessment. Even though I'd already started and covered a lot of ground for them, they were the ones that were actually doing that, so I could keep messing with the physical and the wireless. So my team comes in, they have a meeting with the site contact, they have a nice little chat and all, and after they conclude, I'm making the rounds on the floor and I see them, so I stop to talk to them just like I've been talking to everybody else for the week. Nobody thinks anything different of it for the most part. Until a couple minutes into the conversation. Wednesday, a little bit after 3:30 here we are, and this is the first time now that I've been approached by an employee of this organization that says, something might be wrong. So I get hey guys, excuse me. And we all turn around and look. Hey, how you doing? He said, who are you? Now my friends have the visitor lanyards. I do not. So we're taught, who are you? And they introduced themselves. Said, I'm Mike. Nice to meet you. Who the hell's Mike? I don't know. Mike, he introduces himself back as Randy. I'm Randy, and I was just curious. I hadn't seen you around here before. I was wondering, who do you work with? What do you do? Well, right now I'm just talking to these guys. I'm not really doing much of anything. He said, no, whose team are you on? I said, well, Randy, I'm on my team. Whose team are you on? He said, no. I mean, like, who do you work with? So, I've been doing some work for Steve. Okay. Well, let's go get you a badge, and then we'll go talk to Steve so we can, make sure that everything's good. I said, no, you go talk to Steve. He'll tell you I wasn't supposed to get a badge. I'm good. You go find him. He should be up on the 4th floor. You go find him, and you should be all right. So he says, okay, and walks away. He turns the corner to go find Steve. First of all, there is no Steve. Right? I'm making up names as I go, just kind of pulling them along. In fact, I think I had 3 different first names that week, and I know I introduced myself as the different person to at least 2 different people. I'm trying to get caught, for God's sake. So Randy walks away to go find this mythical unicorn called Steve, and I peace to my buddies, and I'm out. See you guys, I'll be back later. I don't want to burn this bridge, so I bail. I go outside, spend the rest of the afternoon working on the wireless. I'm flabbergasted at this point. I just cannot even believe that I've now even been approached, and there's a punchline to this joke, poor Randy, to be approached by someone, to be questioned, and then to be trusted for my answer, right? Again, the corporate culture is one that it's so broken to where nothing can survive. If you're under attack in this state of security, you're screwed. And that's why I'm here. I want to drive home and hope that you all are thinking that this is absolutely as freaking ridiculous as I do, and that when we leave the conference, that if you take anything away from it, it's to talk to your users, talk to your coworkers, talk to your bosses a little differently, and don't tell them that stuff sucks. We know. But instead, how do we fix it? And it's the fundamentals. It's the basics. Making sure that we have a good foundation to build up from is the only way to be able to fix what is so terribly broken here. Sorry. So Thursday comes. We decided at this point that we were going to bump everything up a day. The internal, I think it took the guys 35 minutes, I think, was the count for domain admin. We owned the door controllers. We owned their video system. We owned the entire domain. Their holy grail of data was their customers' PII. They take credit cards and store this stuff all locally and totally would fail PCI stuff. Like, I don't even understand how they remain in business. Plain text all over the place. You have, passwords, credentials. We found literally everything with what we had. And we're talking, if this were an end-to-end assessment, we could have done this in a day. Right? If it weren't for the fact that we were really trying to be sneaky, if we just came in and plugged in, we could have owned them digitally in a day. But adding to the fact that the physical security was such an issue, because everybody's like, I have a firewall. You can't get in, right? I have access control. Well, what the hell does that matter if I can just walk in your front door and plug in? I've totally bypassed everything at that point. People just don't care about the physical stuff to the point where, they go into the ostrich mode, bury your head in the sand, and we don't think about it anymore. Nobody's going to come and try to attack us. We have a PIN code, right? Well, that doesn't work. And it's very rare that you actually get to prove it to somebody. Because of that, we as red teamers are so bound by this scope, this, it can't happen to me syndrome, to where I'm too small of an organization. And ultimately, that's what this ended up being. Billions of dollars in revenue, and they're too small an organization because we're talking less than 100 employees, and they don't feel like they're a target. If we can't break this culture, then we're going to remain broken ourselves, and we're fighting a losing battle. None of us can afford it. And I don't know about you, but companies like this that have my PII, I certainly don't want to be, standing by idly while it's out there on the black market. So, I digress. Back to the events at hand. So, on Wednesday evening after the carnage, we decided that Thursday was going to be the end of the day. We were going to call it quits. We were going to have our debrief. My whole team convened. The rest of the team came up from DC. My on-site team was already there, and I met them all at the Starbucks for some coffee, and we were like, all right, so we're gonna go have this debrief. Went through a list of the findings, and the first question I asked was, so do you guys want to check in and get badges, or do you want to just go to my office? My boss laughed, and he said, let's go to your office. So we waited a little bit longer. The debrief meeting was going to be after lunch, about 1 o'clock. So we hung around for a little while. We waited and had our lunch, decided that it was time to make our way into the building. So we follow an employee in from lunch. I didn't use the pin pad. I didn't want to burn that quite yet. I wanted to wait if I needed it. But 6 of us to walk right in. They held the door. Nobody said a thing. Having conversation, and that poor receptionist. This girl, I felt so bad by the end because every time I made eye contact with her, I could tell she wanted to say something. She wanted to say something. You don't belong here. One of these things is not like the other. But she didn't. And that, unfortunately, is one thing that I personally get a lot of. I'm big and ugly. People don't want to confront me, especially some little old lady that's just trying to make her $9.75 an hour. But you have to. The culture demands it. You have to. So we decided we weren't going to check in. Let's go. We're wandering. Let's go. We made it past the receptionist. We're having a good old conversation. Rather than taking the elevator, we made it to the stairwell. As we make it up the third flight of steps, we're heading to the 4th floor to the office. And as I go to reach for the handle, the door swings open. Fantastic timing, but who's on the other side of the door but Randy? Hey, Mike, good to see you again. I'm glad you made it back. Hey, we were talking about you, and I'm so glad that you were able to join us. Come on in. Held the door for my entire team. Randy decides to walk with me as we go to the office. Walking around the corner, I break the threshold of my office, and he says, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to my office." "So I didn't know you were an executive." I said, "I'm not." "So I'm the facilities manager, and I didn't know anything about this." Thank you, Dave. That's the reaction I was hoping for. So we have the physical boss that's holding the door for complete strangers. Are you kidding me? We have the guy that determines the policy holding the door for what just happened? Oh, yeah, sorry. I changed the names for, security's sake and all. Look, I don't care what you do. I don't care where you work. I don't care who you are. We all have people we work with, unless you're a one-man shop. And if you're not, then you should still be out spreading this message anyway to your clients and customers and friends. We're fighting a terrible, terrible war right now. I say it quite often. I firmly believe World War III is being fought every day right now. It's happening in front of us. And we are all soldiers in this army. We're fighting an uphill battle. You hear the buzzwords of things like drinking from the fire hose, right? And indeed we are. There's so much to defend against. And there's so much on the line that we do so much to try to deceive ourselves as organizations, as employees, as, active business participants. We try to fool ourselves in thinking that it's okay, my controls work. And then when you go and seek help, when you start working with security partners, when you start going through compliance, God forbid, have a real pen test, right? Do these things because it's happening. We're all soldiers in this army. We're all fighting this war. And if we're not doing it together, then it's going to be very ineffective. Again, I'm here asking for your help. Much like last year, I spent most of my time talking about mentorship and trying to foster the next generation, right? Fostering our replacements, building up the bench of people who are going to do your jobs after you're gone, who are going to do my jobs after I'm gone. But now we also need to see if we can get on the front end of the threat that's in front of us. And that really is our user base and the fact that it's completely underutilized. The fact that we go and wrap all this money in fancy controls and cool stuff, gimmicks, right? Blinky lights, things that make us feel secure, and we don't use the biggest intrusion detection and prevention system that we have. We don't use the most dynamic resource that we have, and that's our people. We go out and buy these fancy controls. I tell this story a lot, so if you've heard it, please don't stop me. Fancy controls. One of the first gigs I did in this industry, in professional security, was to do a architecture review and a network pen test. And we smashed this guy. I mean, I was like, at the end of the day, I was like, dude, do you have a firewall? He's like, yeah, I have a firewall. It's $250,000. It's okay. I didn't see it on your diagram. I surely didn't see it in any of the network interrogation that I did. He said, oh, well, that's because it's here in my office, under my desk, still in the box. Like, this stuff is just absolutely asinine. And the fact of the matter is, that story with the firewall was 10 years ago. This story was a couple of months, not long at all. And we're seeing the same false sense of security that's propagated throughout business culture in this country and around the world. And it's up to us, unfortunately. I mean, you guys made the mistake of coming here. It's your fault. We are the ones that have to defend against it. We all need to go out and help to move the message of changing the culture from one of complacence and where users are like, I get paid, I just work here, to one of being a good digital citizen, being a good person online, understanding basic personal security when you're online relates into your daily tasks at work. And if it doesn't, then it should be. If it doesn't, your policy, your process is broken. I just want to leave you with the quote here on the bottom. The average consolidated total cost of data breach, $3.8 million. It's representing a huge increase since 2013. These are 2015 statistics. So, is it not worth it? How many of our organizations would be able to handle that kind of an expense to recover from a breach? How many of it would put that? I mean, that would put my organization in the ground. This stuff has to change. We have to talk to the users. We have to consider them as assets, and we have to start playing a different game. So with that, I may be a little bit early. I get kind of excited sometimes. But my name's Phil Grimes. If you like what you see, you can see more on my personal website, philipgrimes.com. Securicon.com is the organization that I'm with. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to talk. But one thing we have to remember, I'm a big fan of Sun Tzu. I said we're fighting war, and this is a war, and we all have to be warriors. If you're not in it, then, if you're not with us, you're against us kind of thing, maybe. Be part of the problem, part of the solution. But thanks for your time. If there's questions, you guys have been awful quiet. Again, I know it's super early, but you said you weren't drinking in the back. Yes, sir. Sun Tzu reference. Here you go. Bring me some bourbon. It is never too early. That it? Anybody else? Sir. Fantastic. But how do you fix it? Okay, fantastic question. So that'll definitely help. So how do you fix it? One of the biggest things is, we don't want to throw somebody under the bus, right? Unfortunately, in a posture like this, it has to happen. Build an employee awareness program. Build a security awareness program and make it be something that's ongoing. Have your employees gather with each other and show them, look, we phished you and you suck. Right? Sanitize it so that they don't, nobody gets their feelings hurt. Don't throw anybody personally under the bus, but show them the data. We phished you and you suck. Look, you held the door open for this person, right? So building on the awareness program, that starts to set the baseline. And then, so we've set the policy, we've got the process, but now we need the enforcement mechanism. Use some sort of reinforcement. I've seen this work with something as simple as a pair of movie tickets once a month, right? If you're a whistleblower and you can say that you've seen something wrong or you found an anomaly or you're able to, help give somebody coaching for the security processes, you might win the movie tickets. And as simple as that is, it costs the organization, $20? And you've got, once a month, you've got people there clawing over each other to be able to say, hey, lock your workstation. It absolutely does. You would be surprised. Now, you'll definitely get employees who are like, I don't go to the movies, I don't care. But then there's another prong to the approach. So once we have the process and the policy, once we've got this culture that's a little more secure, and I'm not saying we're going to change it overnight. No, we didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get to a safe place overnight. But once we've got the culture built, then we need to start hiring to that culture. And I truly believe that that's the root of your answer. If you're just hiring somebody strictly because of the fact that they have the ability to do the job, if you're working in a digital environment, that's not enough. They have to be good digital citizens. So they have to be able to answer that. What does their Facebook page look like? They stand there with a pistol and a sack of Coke? What are the comments? How much do they bash their employees? What do they talk about? Getting to know who you're hiring will show whether or not they belong in the culture. I really think that those two things of building a program and hiring to the culture that you want to propagate are the two biggest ways that will win this. Not to mention bringing them up from the younger. We got to foster kids and get them, thinking securely, so that's the culture as well. Question? Statement.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Most employees just don't care. That's not their job.
Right. Incentivize. Thank you. Yeah, and again, we didn't get here by the flip of a coin. This isn't something that has been, just popped on us overnight. We've allowed this to kind of be the thing. And if we have to disallow it. It's just like, anything else these days when we're shaming people for being who they are. You don't want to shame the employees, but you do definitely want to teach them and try to get them to buy into the organization. If they don't want to be there to work, go to McDonald's. Go someplace where you aren't going to touch the computer and everything's good. All right. Unless there's any more hands, thanks very much for your time. Oh, you have more? Yeah, please. Yeah, go ahead. Right. And who wants to be the jerk to be like, oh no, sorry, you can't come in. Dude, I've been that guy. Unfortunately, if I don't know you and you can't prove to me that you're supposed to be, show me your badge. I don't care if you badge in, just show, I can't see a badge. Who are you? If you can't tell me a name, I'll ask you who you work for. If you can't tell me something that gives me reason to believe you belong there, it's not easy. It's certainly not easy. But as a pen tester, you also know security is not easy as a rule. And that's the reason, ultimately, that we're in the state that we're in, is because everybody wants the easy way. We want to we kick our feet up on the desk and open up passwords.txt and have keys to the kingdom. We don't want to deal with, a password manager or something like that. We want the convenience. We don't care about security. And there again, that's the culture. It absolutely is. It comes down to the awareness, the policy, making sure that people know that it exists, know what it is, and then having some mechanism to enforce it. And you would really be surprised. I mean, I've seen global companies build success in awareness programs with movie tickets. Now, not just a pair of movie tickets, but with movie tickets. Simple. Keep it simple. Awesome. You guys have been great. I really appreciate your time. I'll be around all weekend. Please don't forget, if you're playing any of the games, that we've got all kinds of, I've got social engineering challenges. We've got the Game of Pwns, the CTF. So please don't forget. Kind of wanted to introduce the gamification of the conference to get people talking. The more we're able to talk to each other, I've got a lot to learn from you guys. We all have a lot to learn from each other. And the more we talk, the more we can go spread the message once we leave. So thanks for your time. If you have questions or want to talk more, I'll be around. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day.